Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Maria Gonçalves podcast. I am your host, Maria Gonçalves, and today we have a special guest and friend, Laura Hamilton. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Maria. It's lovely to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So, Laura is a dedicated psychic and spiritual medium. She is also a Reiki practitioner, and she is based in Scotland. So, welcome all the way from Scotland, Laura.
Thank you, thank you. It's a very windy day outside, but it's lovely to be here with you. You always make the sun shine, Maria, every time I
Oh,
speak to you.
thank you. So do you. I love it because we are actually in the same class. That's how we met a year ago in the same progressive mentorship. I did want to ask you, as a medium, have you always been a medium? Like, were you one of those mediums that had experiences as a young child?
I'm going to say yes. Do you know, people probably thought I was a weird kid. Um, what am I saying, a weird kid? I'm a weird adult, but I'm okay with that now. Yeah, because I am an only child, and there was only myself and my mother. And we used to go to my grandparents. They had a farm, and I used to go there every weekend from the Friday night to the Sunday night. And so obviously that was maybe about 10, 12 miles away from my home. So it meant that I was getting taken away to this wonderful place, but I was leaving all my school friends and whatever behind. So it meant then, as I say, because I was an only child, it meant then that I would probably say part of me would probably say I had a very lonely childhood. But it kind of wasn't, because I had a farm full of friends. And I'm not the weird, I'm not the weird woman here that's like, she talks to animals. But yes, I do. I still do it. I still do it. But
Yes.
yeah, so that was my time. And it's funny because now, I don't know if you've had this conversation, children now, you think that they need so much, things done for them. They need so much stimulation, outside themselves. So whether it's iPads or iPhones or but I'll probably speak for you as well, Maria. When we were young, we had our imagination, and I don't think anything beats your imagination. And I think no matter how alone you are, or whatever. I think if you have an imagination, you can fill your time with so much wonder. Um, but going back to your question, yeah, I mean, I was allowed to be myself when I was on that farm, because there was no one there to judge you. There's just that sense of freedom. And I was one of these kids, and again, it's going back in time, a long time, but it's going back in time. We were of a time where, you had something to eat in the morning, you were basically out all day, you only came back in when you were hungry, you went away back out again. And so I just had so much freedom, but I was never, as I say, people would have said, oh, she's alone because she's, away from any school friends, she doesn't have any sisters or brothers. But I was actually okay. And it's kind of strengthened me as a person that I'm actually okay with myself, with my own, company. I think that's a strength that I probably wouldn't change now. It was hard at times, but I wouldn't change it now. But I do remember seeing spirit. And why I was telling you all that, I know I went round the houses there to give you the answer, but why I was telling you all that is because I remember seeing, and it was at the farm, and I remember seeing this gentleman. His name, I remember him to this day. He was someone who lived just a short, distance away from the farm, and he was always a lovely man. And every time I walked past his house, he would always be sitting out in the sunshine, and he would always say hello. I'd say hello. And I remember it was eveningy time, and I remember I was in a certain part of the farm, and I looked over and I thought, what is Mr. Crosby doing over there? And I was probably about 7 at the time. And I thought, what's Mr. Crosby doing in there? Because I thought, he's got nothing to do with the farm. But I didn't think any more about it. But I do remember that he had this glow about him, and I thought, what's that? How did he get that? So I remember going in, and it wasn't any big, oh my gosh. I just went in the house, and I think I had dinner, and I can't even remember who I spoke to, but I must have spoke to either my grandfather or my mum or somebody, and I said, "Do you know, I just saw Mr. Crosby and just did," and they're like, "No," and I says, "No, I did." Even, and I told them exactly where he was and where he was standing, and I says, "They had this glow." They said, "No, Laura, Mr. Crosby died over a week ago." But, oh, and that's funny, I've just got chills telling you that. It's maybe coming through now. But I just remember not thinking about it. I just was like, "Oh, okay." It was very, "Oh, it's okay." And I also remember my mum, who is now passed. She passed a couple of years ago, unfortunately. But I remember we had a conversation just a couple of years ago when I was really getting into the development of this. And she would quite often remind me of things that we forget as, kids. And I was talking to her about something. I think I was talking to her about a demonstration or a reading I did. As I say, this was a good few years ago now. And she says, "Laura, do you not remember?" Remember what, Mum? Give me a hint here. She says, "Do you not remember that you used to talk about the people at the end of your bed?" I says, "Mum, no, no, no. There was, what you talking?" She says, "Laura, you did." She says, "You used to say it all the time." And I genuinely do not remember. I remember certain dreams when I was a child, but she used to say to me, no, she says she used to say to me in the morning about the man. There was often a man who sat at the end of my bed and spoke to me. So I wish I could remember. But yeah, but I always, and I think a lot of people like us, when we're kids, that it's weird because it's almost as if there's a knowing of things. You don't know
Mhm.
how you know it, but you know it. Um,
Yes.
yeah. And I remember it was one time, I think it was a relative or a friend that had passed away. And I remember my mum getting upset, and we spoke about death, which wasn't really a big thing that we spoke about. We spoke about it anyway. And I remember saying to my mum, which if I had a child, I would probably be a bit worried if my child said this to me. But I remember saying to her, and it was just this, as I say, it was just this knowing. And I says, "Mum, when at that moment that you pass, you just feel this freedom. You just feel all these things that we worry about, it just goes, and you don't." I remember my mum's face, and I think I was maybe about 14 at the time, and my mum, "This, what are you talking about? How do you know that?" I says, "I don't know, but I just," and it was just that, it's almost as like knowing if the sun's shining, or you know your name, or you know your dog. It was
Yeah.
that, just that definite knowing. And I also used to know when people would pass, as well, which took its toll on me because how it affected me. I would always feel maybe about a week to 10 days before someone, was about to pass. I would feel this, I can only explain it as a really strong depression. And when it first started happening, the first couple of times, I was so low and so, I was going to say, I can't think of another word, but just so depressed.
Yeah.
And I just was getting all these feelings, and I thought it was, initially, I thought it was me that was, that was kind of going to die. And even this was maybe about 16, 17, it kind of started. And I remember thinking, okay. And I would almost, I'm not saying I put plans in place, but I did kind of think, right, I've got to, and I've got, because I thought, this is my time, I'm going to go. And I was okay with that for some reason. Um, but then I found, and every time I felt it in my life, it's always been, I know that someone's just about, to pass, and then they hear about it. And as soon as it happens and I hear about it, the feeling just lifts and I'm back to my normal happy-go-lucky self. But at the time, it's hard. Is that something you have as well? Have you
A
experienced that?
little bit, but I am curious, do you know who it is or it's just a feeling?
It's normally just a feeling, but it's
Okay.
normally, I can feel with the strength of the feeling, I can either tell whether it's close family or distant family or somebody that's just around.
Oh,
But it's heavy. It's not nice. But yeah, so that was a hugely long answer. If
yeah.
you didn't know me, you'll now know that I do like to talk. So sorry everyone that's watching thinking, do I take a breath? Yeah, I do occasionally. So yeah, that's my very long answer.
So, like for me, I don't know that I feel when people are gonna pass the way that you do, but I do know I have that knowing. I just know things are gonna happen. And I've always known it as a young child, and I was always dismissed as like the crazy child. She's crazy. That can't be true. And then a year and a half, 2 years later, it will happen. I just know things are gonna happen. And I'll say it, and people will look at me and they'll be like, nope, it's no, no. And then I just gave up on trying to explain it.
Yeah.
I was like, I know it. I'll keep it to myself. And then I just move along.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you say that because I remember, not that I want to talk about COVID times, but I
Yeah.
remember the job I was doing at that time, which I loved. And I remember it was about the October, yeah, it was about the October, November, no, I'll say October, the October time. And I remember I had this, I don't know, it's funny, we can't really describe our feelings. We just know the emotional effect it has on us. And I remember,
Yeah.
so it was obviously October 2019, and I had just been booked to do two jobs. One was in New York and one was in Cuba. But this feeling, because when I used to come home, because I would be working away for a couple of months at a time. And I used to come home, and this time, and it was just this feeling of huge change, just huge change. And when I came home, I would say to people up here and my mum, I used to say, there's something now I thought it was my career because I thought it's going to be amazing. And I just thought, because I just felt this worldwide change.
Yeah.
But I thought it was my worldwide change. But it was just so immense and it was constant. It was just every day. And I thought, what? And it was almost as if I'm waiting to either get a really important email, or it was something. And I used to keep saying to, as I say, my mum and my partner, I'd be like, I don't know what this is, but it's huge, it's big. And I thought, I was going to get this. I mean, I'd had this amazing opportunity, and I thought this is going to really take me somewhere, career-wise. And then obviously a couple of months later, but again, it was almost as if we found out what it was, the world found out what it was, and this increased feeling inside me on a constant daily basis just left. So again, it's the same kind of thing. It's almost as the feeling, as the intuition builds and builds and builds, it's almost as if, you've got your answer, and it just,
Yeah.
and obviously. And then we all know what happened after
Yeah.
that, which we will talk about. But yeah, so it's weird. It's just weird feelings. But
I
yeah.
get that all the time. I will get a feeling, a knowing that I something's gonna happen. So like a couple months, I don't know, I was out with a friend. I was like, oh, I feel like I go away second week of June. Like all of a sudden I just got this feeling. And she's like, what? And my kids are like, can we go with you? And I'm like, no, because I don't know where we're going. I can't take you because it doesn't feel like I'm taking people with me. So it's always
Mhm.
trusting that feeling. And then as June is coming up, I love how spirit works with me. I got nothing. And I was like, but I know I'm going. And nothing. And then just a couple of days before I wake up that morning, it's Thursday morning, and it's this overwhelming feeling. You have to leave now. You have to book your trip now. And I was like, oh, okay, we're going, we're going, we're going. But I trust it. And
Yes.
I follow it. So I was gone like Saturday morning. Thursday evening, I booked my trip. Saturday morning, I kind of had a bit of, oh, I don't even know if I have clothes. Where are the luggage? Is my passport? Like, I don't know. But it was just that overwhelming feeling of, I know I have to do this. And then I went away and then I understood why it needed to happen.
Mhm.
But it's like even for myself, one day, like I used to live in this townhouse, and one day I was like, oh, raking the leaves, and I got this overwhelming feeling of I was going to put up my house for sale. And I'm like, no, spirit, I've only been here a year and a half. And it was during COVID. I was like, I don't want to move. I just like, you get into these bidding wars just to find a house and finally find a house. And now you're telling me I'm going to move. And I'm just like, no. So I ignore it because I'm very good at ignoring spirit. So I ignore spirit. And then come the fall, the feeling like I just wake up one day, I'm so overwhelmed with that feeling of I have to move, I have to move. I call the real estate agent, we have to move now. She's like, but you just moved in. Where are you going? I don't know, but we have to move now. And I know we have to sell the house now. And my kids freaked out. They're like, but where are we going, mom? I don't know. Have you ever heard of that? It's like all spirit led. It's like, yes. So then I'm like, spirit, where am I going? I don't know where I'm going. So I actually ended up moving into my mom's house, my mom and dad's house. But little did I know the big plan or what was happening behind the scenes, because we never know, right? We just trust the feelings and we go. Is I moved me and my kids into my parents' house. And then a few weeks later, my dad has a massive stroke, ends up in the hospital, ends up in a nursing home. And then my mom needs extra care. But I didn't know that when I was putting the house for sale. It was just like, you got to sell it, and then you follow. But to the outside world, we look like crazy people.
Yeah.
What are they doing? This makes no sense. Even my real estate agent's like, what are you doing? I'm like, the feeling is so overwhelming. I don't know if you get that, like where it just washes over you and you have to do it. And then once you do it, it goes away.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly it. It's the feeling, and as you say, the build up, the more you either ignore it or you're not sure about it, it just builds and builds
Yes.
and builds until and it's almost that, I mean, how many years do we had to go through to learn just trust?
Yeah.
We have our human mind constantly that's like, oh no, you can't, but you shouldn't. But why are you doing that? And we know we know what we're receiving, what we're feeling, and to trust. But it's a bit of an argument sometimes between our soul and
Yeah.
our human beings, because then we have to say, no, I don't know why I'm feeling this, but I've got to go with it. And as you
Yeah.
say, Maria, you release, you trust, you go with it. How many times has things happened in life and then you look back and you go, that
Yeah.
was why I went through that. And then you think, oh, if that hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have done that and I couldn't have made that. Yeah, it's crazy.
But then
We
it's
wouldn't
like,
have been
what
here.
I find too? It's the language because I will hear people and they'll be like, Uh, it's so funny because my daughter would be like, "So, mom, how are your psychic powers today?" And I just look at her like, "What psychic powers? You mean intuition? Trust that gut feeling?"
Yeah,
But to her,
yeah.
it's like, "Oh, that's so woo-woo." And then sometimes we have these conversations where it's like, if you look at CEOs of multi-million dollar companies or whatever, they trusted their intuition. It's just a play on words. Like, which word do you trust? And then once you change it around and be like, instead of saying like, "Hey, I'm psychic," it's like, trust your intuition. What is your gut? What's that feeling?
Gut feeling. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
trust that feeling and go with it, and it all works out. And if I when I break stuff down for people that way instead of like, "Ooh, psychic powers," what are you talking
yeah,
about?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because when people hear about psychic, they think it's something, oh, just certain special people have. But as you know, we've all got a soul. We all have that ability, and it's only just having that realization that if you feel something or you sense something, because, and I don't know about you, when you're talking to people and you do mention any, psychic, I mean, let's not even start with mediumship, but even the psychic, and it's like, yeah, but we're all, oh, but that's, whoa, weird. Okay, so when you walk into a room, you can't feel that there's just been an argument,
Mhm.
or or you go into a restaurant and I don't feel comfortable with that table, can I get that one? So we all do it, but, and as you say, it's just language, isn't it? Whereas
Yes.
if you said, I've got a gut feeling, I feel better there. So yeah, you're completely right, it's language again, and what people find appropriate, or yeah, or that they can explain. So
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
So I like breaking down language so people understand, guess what? We're all like this.
Yeah.
Everybody's intuitive because everybody knows I have a bad feeling about going here, or that doesn't feel right. Even when people are picking out their vacations and you're picking out your vacation, which vacation spot feels good? Because you're looking at the pictures, like you're choosing a vibe, you're choosing something that's aligned with you. It's like, yeah, I really feel like I want to go to a beach, or I really feel like I want to go to a meditation place, or really feel like I want to get on a plane and go visit family in another part of the world. But that's you trusting that intuition, that gut, that vibe.
Yeah,
Do it
absolutely.
every day. We just don't realize we do it because when you say psychic powers, like, ooh,
I know.
we sound special, but we all got it. We're all the same. Just it's strengthening that muscle and it's trusting. Because now I trust like you trust. So then I
Yeah.
find spirit gets we get more of it because we
Get
trust it.
on board. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's even, I don't know about you, but over the years, even whether it's been like you said, moving home, but it can be moving jobs or,
Mhm.
relationships, when you get that feeling of this isn't right, this isn't right. And I don't just mean that, oh, I'm having a bad day at work or I'm having a bad day with my partner. It's that feeling. And again, that intensity just grows.
Yes.
And that's like your higher self just going, it's time to move. It's time to leave this because there's other things there.
Yeah.
And I kind of think it's just fear. I know for me, and I can only talk for me, but I think over the years, when I think back to my teenage years all the way through, I had the feeling and it grew and it intensified, but there was the fear of, oh, but I can't leave this partner, because what if there's nobody else would want to be in a relationship with me, or oh, I can't leave this job because I'll never get another job. And it's crazy now that I'm, old and I can look back, but at the time it's so stressful when you're having all these feelings of time to move on, this isn't right anymore. But again, the human mind saying, oh, but you can't because nobody else is going to love you, or nobody else is going to
Yeah.
hire you. So yeah, it just works in so many ways, doesn't it? But it's all the same mechanism, but it just works in every aspect of our lives for everybody.
That is so true. Like, how many times, and for people that are listening to this, how many times have you ignored that feeling that you should go left, but you went right? And then after, you're like, oh, but I knew it, but I ignored it. I think so many people can relate because I've done that so many times, or where I felt like I needed to do something, but somebody else has talked me out of it. Like a friend will talk me out of it, or a partner, and they talk you out of it. And you're like, okay, because we're in people pleasing mode. It's like, oh, they must know better than me. And then you do it, and then you're like, darn, I knew better. Why did I listen to them? It took me a couple of years to figure that out. So then when people give me advice, I will look at them and be like, thank you. But it really feels like I'm going here because I know if I listen to you, although you think you're right, it's not right for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember you've just reminded me of when I was listening to you there, and my mum always used to say, and I know I keep talking about, my mum, but as I say, only child, it was only me and her. So we did have a very close relationship. And I remember over the years, she always used to say, Laura, you can't be told. Laura, you've always got your own mind. And
Okay.
yeah, and it's like I do, and I do listen to people's opinions, but I'll always make my own mind because, like you, I've been burnt in the past because, again, you think, oh, they're older, or they're wiser, or they're more experienced, so they know better than me what to do with my life, what to do with my decisions. And although those things came from a place of love,
Yes.
I every time I have listened to someone else's opinion and gone against what I was feeling every time, it's always been a what the why did I go and do that? So now I'll always say to people, whether it's my partner or any close friends, I'll say, thank you, but it's not what I want to do. I want to go and do, and hopefully people that know me and know that that comes from a loving place. They know
Yeah.
that I'm not dismissing them. It's just a case of I know what's right for me. And I think, and again, it's kind of coming back round to what I said earlier, Maria, about um, being alone, being comfortable in your own company. Because obviously I didn't have a choice for that, so it's almost as if I've had this all my life. But it must be so difficult for those people who are either constantly with siblings or constantly with their partner, who haven't quite learned yet or had the freedom to learn that we always know what's best for us, and that if we don't listen to husbands or mums and dads or siblings, it's because we're just honouring our own soul and our own soul journey, our own path. So yeah, it's just it's nice to be reminded that every single one of us, every single person that's listening or watching this,
Yeah.
will always know your truth. You will always know your north node. You will always know what feels right. And I think for all of us, whether it upsets people or not, if you always listen to your own self and do what's right and check in with you, you can never go far wrong for you. And I think
Yeah.
that's the important thing, isn't it? It's all about you.
That is so true, is trust your vibe. But that takes time, right? Because when we're younger,
Yeah.
and even now, I still have my moments of I want to please everybody. And then it's like it
Yep.
doesn't go my way.
Yeah.
But interesting, because do you do tarot?
I do tarot. I do tarot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. And it's funny because it's just like doing a psychic, well, it is a psychic reading.
Yes.
Um, but It's interesting because if I'm, again, it's just like when we do a psychic reading or even a mediumship reading, if we're tired, if we're feeling a bit ill, under the weather, the intuition doesn't work as well, and
Yeah.
you'll notice too. But yeah, I do. It's funny because um, as you know, we both do psychic and mediumship readings, so we can have someone either in front of us, whether it's on Zoom or in a
Mhm.
room, and we can give them a psychic reading. And but that, I think, freaks some people out, that we can read somebody when we have, when we're in a setting of, a psychic sitting, that we can actually look into that person's soul and see what's gone before and see what's happening around them. So sometimes, and I don't know if you do this too, Maria, but sometimes just having, I'm just going to interrupt myself here because I know a lot of working professional mediums around the globe do this, that they do what we do, but they will always have a deck of, whether it's tarot cards or oracle cards, they will always have a deck there. Um, because some people, some sitters feel a little bit freaked out that we can pick up so much about what's going on in somebody's life or what's happened in the past. So that's, I'm not saying that's why I do tarot, but that is why I learned tarot. And also, I remember reading about it that it helps intuition. So,
Yes.
so anyone that's wanting to improve their intuitive skills and almost get more psychic downloads, learn tarot, read tarot or oracle cards or angel cards or whatever, because it's amazing. I've worked with people who have never picked up a card before, and then you say, okay, tell me, you know, pick that card up for me. And they'll be like, I've never done this before. And
Yeah.
it's amazing how just a total newbie who's never done it before can, okay, so what does that tell you? And they can give you a reading, but they don't realize that although they're looking at the card and they're just picking out so many, different things. And isn't it funny? Because you do tarot as well, Maria, don't you?
I do. I teach it. So I'm going to be teaching again in
Yeah.
September. And now I'm on the journey of figuring out how to create my own tarot deck. So
But oh, well, sign
I'm
me up for
excited about that. So
that.
to learn how to do my own creative tarot deck, because I've already got all the images inside my head. So now I just have to figure out graphic designer. How do I get what's in here out on cards to put
Fabulous.
them
Well,
myself? Yes.
okay, well, if you're having a Kickstarter, then let me know and I will 100% support you in that. That would be wonderful.
But I never even thought of Kickstarter. I'm just trying to figure out what stuff is next. And I figure I'm going to go Google it. And I have a friend, well, I'll connect you with a graphic designer and you can have a conversation. So you figure it out. Because I always get in these moments of, I want to write something, I want to create something. So I start getting all the ideas, all the downloads. And now it's like, well, then I figure out the how, but the creative part always starts first,
Yes.
and that nudge of it's time. And I started like sketching how I want the cards to be because I want it to be a part of my culture, like I'm Portuguese. So I want those bright colors in there. Like I've already got a couple of the cards already designed. Now it's like, okay, how do I get what's inside my head on a piece of paper? And who's gonna do that part? But I will yeah, it's just synchronicities and trusting spirit. It's like, you know what? Step two will show up when it needs to. And I'm not worried and I'm being kind to myself because it's not, I found like I did a tarot book, the intuitive tarot journal, and I wrote it in 3 languages. But that was because I teach tarot. So I kept creating a journal every year and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was like, you know what? This just needs to turn into a book to make it easier for
Yeah.
people to learn or for people that sign up. And now it's like, I know for me, tarot, it's about the artwork. Like I've fallen in love with the artwork, so I have a lot of tarot decks.
Yeah.
Uh, and I get very excited about the artwork because I find the cards have a vibration. And then you learn about the artist and like, why did you create that? Like, there's always
Mm.
stories because there's pictures and pictures have stories and they have history with them. So I always find that fascinating because I find tarot decks, they're personal. But the reason I actually brought up tarot was
Mm.
because of the conversation we were having about people trusting their own intuition and not giving their power away. Because I've had the experience, and I don't know if you've had it, where people will come for a tarot reading or a psychic reading and be like, you decide, you make the decision for me.
Yeah.
I'll be like, no, I can't do that, but I can walk you through it and we can see how it
Yeah.
feels. So I always get them to
Yeah.
go back. It's like, well, how does that feel? Because your body never lies.
Yeah.
Like when you
Yeah.
say the decision, I'll make them say whatever it is. Like, do I stay in this job or do I quit this job? And when I say, do you stay in this job? I'll make them close their eyes. I'm like, say the words, just like, how does it feel? Did you relax and feel like you can breathe? Or did your whole body just tense and you feel like you're going to throw up? Because we'll go through the reading, but at the end of the day, you make the decisions. So do
Mm.
you find like when you're doing readings, like psychic readings, people don't want to trust their intuition? They want to like, Laura, you decide for me.
I yeah, I had do sometimes, but I think it it's almost doing a reading is just going through the points of what their issue is.
Mhm,
Um, so whether it's relationship or business or, you know, all the things that we read, um, it's kind of like, you know, sometimes when you talk to someone, so if you've got a problem and you talk to someone, and just as you say the things, it's almost as though that's been therapeutic.
mhm.
Because you've just kind of said the not the bullet points, but you've went over and by the time you've told the person your problem, you're like, oh, I actually feel better now and I know what to do. So that for me, that is what my psychic readings and my tarot readings do. It's almost, I always explain it to clients, it's like having a bird's eye view on a situation.
Mhm.
Because you know when you're stressed and your body reacts to "Oh, that's a worry and that's stressful and it's all very fragmented, and
Yeah.
then you get into the headspace of I don't know what I'm going to do, how am I going to get out of this, how's it going to a reading, whether it's half an hour or 45 minutes or however long your reading is, having that space with that other person in front of you to say, well, this is your time, let's have a look.
Mhm.
And just going over what's happening in their life. It's almost like hearing it from the other person, hearing it from my voice. It's their life, but
Yeah.
hearing it from my voice, it almost works in the fact of, oh, well, you've just told me everything that's going on in my life and all the issues and the problems and the worries and all the other worries that's connected to this problem. But now you've said it, you know, so it's almost as if, I'm not saying they come to their own conclusion, but it's almost like a therapy session. I do, you know, coaching as well, and I started it because my mentor at the time was very interested in doing coaching with tarot, and I started that, and I actually ended up becoming a coach in its own, you know, sense. But I think sometimes with a reading, as you say, you spark certain things in the person's mind that you're not telling them anything, you know, plucked from nowhere. It is
Yeah.
going on in their life, or it has gone on in their life. And I think they're amazed when you can say, this is what's happened, that's how you feel, and that's what you know, it's connected to all these other parts of your life. But it's almost like when they hear it, it's almost like, ah, that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
think when they leave that Zoom meeting or they leave the room that you're doing it in, you probably find it as well, Maria, that your client just leaves so much. I don't know, there's a clarity. It almost clarifies things. And it's all, for me, it's all about giving the power back to the client because we're all,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
yeah, it's like just what we were saying. We all have our own power. We all make our own choices. And just having that, as I say, the bird's eye view of it, having a little talk about it, getting that clarity, seeing in your client's face that there is that clarity, that clearness of, right, I am back in control. I can sort this out, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's lovely. It's a lovely thing to share with somebody, isn't it?
It is, and I find too, psychic readings or without cards is also a confirmation of what you're already thinking and feeling.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many times have you said something and a client says, how did you know? How did you know that? How did you know that? It's like because it's there within your aura, isn't it?
Yeah. There's like
Mm.
a huge story in there and people don't realize it. But then there's this myth out there, because I will hear people say this to me, oh, you're just reading my mind. I was like, what? No, I'm
No.
not reading your mind. And then to ethical mediums and ethical psychics, when we work. And when we're off the clock,
Mm.
I don't care what's happening in your life. Like I'm not going to an event going, "Ooh, let me tune into your aura and get the 411," because that's just wrong. And I don't do that. And I think it's important to put it out there because people get scared because I'll hear that from people. It's like, "Oh, are you going to read me?" I was like, "No, unless you book a session with me, you are not getting a reading from me." Like it's not going to happen.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. Because then it's using our energy. And as you say,
Yeah.
there's a lot of unethical things that happen. That's why this um, way of life can get a bad name because there are so many unethical people around and have been for many years. So yeah, but as you say, unless you book a reading, you know exactly what you're going to get for that time. That is the only time that we will be tuning into you. Our energy is very precious to us, and unless it's something that, has been properly organized and booked, then no, we're not obviously going to give our energy away for nothing. It's very precious to us.
That is true. So for tarot, how long? Like when did you learn to read tarot? I am just curious about that.
Well, not that long ago, actually. I remember my mum. My mum was really into spiritualism, but she had a fear of it. So we would go to spiritualist churches. I remember being a young child, and she would always, have cards, or my grandmother would read tea leaves. So, even at, 7 and 8 years old, and my mum would always say, you can read the tea leaves better than me. Now, again, it's probably just my imagination. But so I remember my mum saying to me, she would sometimes say, do you want some tea, Laura? Because we love tea over here. So yeah, I'd say, yeah, I'd love a cup of tea. I would always know what my mother's thought was when I could see the tea leaves at the bottom of the cup. And then it would just be like, oh, turn the cup and do all this stuff. Then she'd be like, read me, read me. And I was probably only about 10 or 11. But sorry, going back to tarot, yeah, I remember my mum had a deck of tarot cards. I feel as if I'm telling her secrets now. Sorry, mum. Um, but she was very, I think, because a lot of fear have been put into people through tarot cards. And it's like they're just pieces of cardboard with pictures on them. That's all they are. There's
Yeah.
no magical power in them whatsoever. So there's nothing to be fearful of. But I think back in the day, and I still see things on Facebook now, but I remember she had a deck of, tarot cards that I wasn't allowed to touch, and it was very much put away in this black velvet, material, whatever. But yeah, I didn't start like way long time ago, maybe I don't know, about 5 years or something like that. So it's not been long. But yeah, about 5 or 6 years ago, I started doing tarot, and I remember I said to my mum, and it's funny because I remember thinking, I better not tell my mum, she'll give me into trouble. 'Cause it was always like, don't you touch tarot cards. But yeah, and used to give her readings, and she would be like, how did you? How did you pick that up? You be careful with those cards, because it's almost like this black magic, whatever, these things that we've been told by really bad Hollywood films over the years, and everything else, which is, as I say, it's crazy. So anyone that is worried about them, don't be. They're just pieces of card with pictures on, nothing else.
That's it. So, do you remember the tarot deck your mom had? Like, was it the Rider-Waite deck or was it older
I
than that?
I would love to know. I would love to know what it was, and if she was here, I would have spoken to her about it. I can't remember because it was all very. You would think it was the Secret Service. I just remember going into the living room one night. I don't know if I'd been in my bedroom or if I'd been out, and I was maybe, I don't know, 14 or something. And I remember walking in, and she was like, I was like, and anybody does that, and you're like, what's going on? And I
Yeah.
was like, what's that? And she was like, nothing, nothing, because it was very secret. Everything was very secret in my family. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And as soon as you say nothing to somebody, especially a child,
Yeah.
I want to know now. So no, to answer your question, Maria, I don't know what it was. I don't. I just remember them being shuffled, very quickly into a pile again, wrapped up and put away somewhere, and I never saw them again, which is a shame. But other things my mum just loved. I mean, it was her that used to take me to what we would call fortune tellers back in the day. She was always very interested in spirituality and things like that. And she would sometimes say, I had to be over 16. But I remember she say, I'm going to the fortune teller. And it just shows you, I don't know if you guys call them fortune tellers over there. I know, here in, the UK, it's fortune tellers. And I think that's why people do think that when they come for a psychic reading or a mediumship reading, and a lot of people don't know the difference. Um, but when people are coming to someone like us, they think we're going to do all these predictions. And I remember my mum going to fortune tellers, and it would always be someone's going to buy a red car, you're going on holiday, the number 34, who's Mary Jane? So it wasn't the proper stuff. I'm going to say the proper stuff. And please no one take offence to that, but it wasn't. It's very apparent that so many people haven't had the training that we've had, and haven't put in the years of development that we have. And I'm glad to say that we are both people of integrity and of trust. And if we can't do something properly, we're not going to do it at all. Um,
Yes.
and and so, I think so many people have had these, I'm going to call them bad experiences, but these unfortunate experiences of going to what somebody, whether they're a psychic or a medium, but known as a fortune teller, getting all this rubbish told to them, people predicting things, predicting death. It's just not something that happens, and it's not something that we do. So it's crazy, but it's funny because it was like what we were saying earlier on. If you don't know something, you don't know it,
Yes.
and so many people even now of where they'll mention, oh, I'm going to see a psychic. And maybe I've not told them anything about what I do. And I'll say, oh, but then they'll start, or they'll say, I'm going to see a medium. I wonder what they'll tell me about what's happening in 6 months' time. And then I'm like, okay. And so the majority of the public out there, unless you've been properly trained, the majority of people don't know the difference between a psychic reading and a mediumship reading. And as I say, they do expect what's coming up for me in the next year. And they don't really realise, how it works. And I think, as we've often said, both together and with our colleagues, it's our job to educate people. It's our job to let people know what a proper psychic reading is, what a proper mediumship reading is. And it's not, some of the things that you get out there is like from crazy horror movies. That's not what it's about. It's completely the opposite. So I think if we can get out there and let people know what should be happening, there's a far cry from what is happening, which is quite sad, but that's the journey that we're on, isn't it, Maria? That we're out there to give love and give healing, but also give education of what should be happening, but what shouldn't be happening, because it's quite scary.
There are all types of readers, good and bad. I've had the experience where I went in, she was reading playing cards. A friend recommended her, and I was like, okay, I'll go. It'll be a fun experience because I've never had somebody read playing cards. I walked out in shock, and I'm trained in this, right? So I know better, but it still messed with my head for a couple of days because she gave me death dates for every member of my family. And I was like, I went into shock. I didn't have a response because it caught me off guard. So if people are listening to this, like, you should walk away with death dates of your whole family. Like, that's not good.
Yeah.
And for readings, they should touch your heart and they should make you feel empowered. I've learned from my own life, I've had readings and they have not been good readings. But the one thing I did learn, because I always feel like there's a lesson in everything, is what never to do to another human being because of those experiences that I've had. But I do want to get back to the way you grew up, because like I grew up Roman Catholic. Like we are praying to Mary every night, praying the rosary. And it sounds like your house is way more fun than my house. And you're doing like tarot and tea leaf reading. So do you know how to do tea leaf reading? Because that sounds like lots of fun.
Well, sometimes I see these books in bookshops or online, and it's tea leaf reading. No, I don't. No one ever sat me down and said that's what that means, and that's what I honestly, I was just again a child with imagination, and my mother would say, see what you see in there, Laura. And that's when I would, you would see different things of, oh, I see horses ploughing a field, or so. No, I mean, please do not think I'm a tea leaf reader. No, it's not anything I ever put any training into whatsoever. Um,
But you
so I
have
would
fun with it. You have fun.
yeah, it was fun. And I think it was just a more fun bonding thing because, as I say, there would be my mum and my grandmother and myself, and it would all be, having tea and then turning the cup a certain way. And then saying, what do you see? So it was more of a fun thing. It wasn't anything serious or whatever. So no, it's not something I know what to do. It's just, sometimes people put things on social media and it'll be of clouds and they'll say, what do you see in the clouds? So it
Yeah.
was more kind of that, like, I see a dog's face and I see this. I think it was my mum just wanted that, oh, we've got a psychic. with family. She's 6 years old. Here, read. So no, there was no training whatsoever. I think it was just us having fun, really. But it was good. It was good, and it was a nice little, as I say, a nice little, bonding thing with the ladies in the family. That was all.
I think it just sounds like fun. I think I make buy some tea leaves and try and figure out how to do it. I don't know how to do it, but there is a lot of good books, videos you just have to go through, or classes out there for people that are interested in learning how to read the tea leaves. I just find that fascinating the way you grew up with all of that stuff. I know for my kids, when they were growing up, there was always tarot cards around, or there was a basket in the living room. It's like, and I had a lot of angel cards, like, go pick your angels.
Oh,
And they'd be
yeah.
like, oh, we shuffle. And then the nieces and the nephews would come over and be like, oh, we're going to Tia's house. And she's got the cards. Yeah, the cards are there for all
Oh,
the
that's
kids to play with. Like, so it doesn't feel like it's like woo woo stuff. It's like, no, it's just there. Go pick a card. What do your angels say? And then we had, like, I have, but I can't remember what they're called. The sticks, the wands.
oh, yeah.
I
I
don't
can't do
remember what
those.
you call them. But I
You
used
looking
to
at?
hold one out with my kids, and I'd be like, your angels are always around with you, like they're guides. And they would just hold it, and I'd be like, just ask them to play with you. And they would spin it, like spirit would spin it, spin it, spin it.
Oh,
And
that's
my
lovely.
kids would light up because I give them each, but I can't remember. There's something wands. I can't remember what you call them,
Yeah,
or dowsing wands or something.
that's
I
it.
can, yeah.
That's it.
So I
Dowsing
had,
rods. That's it.
yeah.
Dowsing rods.
And
Yeah.
my kids growing up, they would light up. They'd be like,
Mm,
my angels are here. And it was just like a visual for them to be like,
mm.
look, hold one. They only have one wand, and it would spin. They'd be like, see, your angels are here. And then we put the wands away. Like, we didn't go in and ask like serious questions, because I know there are professionals that use those rods for reading. We just use them with the intention of, hey, we're connecting to our angels. We're going to have some fun. So they each get a rod, and they would light up. They'd be like, how did that move? How did that move? And I remember one of my kids' friends be like, you have it on an angle. You're holding it this way. I'm like, I don't know. You know what? It's moving. We're having fun. I'm not a professional. And the kids would light up, because I think it's important, like growing up, just don't make it feel like it's like so spooky. It's like it's just a
Yeah.
part of who we are. And
Yeah.
your angels, your guides, your loved ones, they're always around you, and they're always giving us signs, right? So this is just a different way of them uh receiving signs from spirit. So my
Mm.
kids, like, they grew up Catholic, but they also grew up spiritual. It's like, yeah, we got our Catholic traditions, but also know spirit is also around you all the time. You can call them. And then, too, I think is important, because you were talking about this, it's just like when you have clients, just educating them on what is a reading and what is not a reading. And people are smart. They know by the end, when they receive a reading, if it was a bunch of rubbish, or if it was like, if it touched their heart, if it made them feel empowered as they walked away. Like, right? You totally
Absolutely.
know. So I am wondering, for people that are going on this journey for the first time, and they're like, oh, Laura, what do I do? Where do I start? Like, everything sounds so exciting too. It's like tea leaves, tarot, mediumship, psychic, and they're having all these experiences. What would you recommend as a medium, as a professional medium, professional coach? Like, this is what I recommend for beginners.
100% Maria. I'm going to say meditation. Um, for so many reasons. And I know some people will think, "Ah, that's boring.
Mhm.
Give me the good stuff. Let's get the exciting stuff." Meditation for me is hugely important. And I remember when I used to hear about meditation, and I used to think that you had to be sitting cross-legged, and you used to have to be doing mudras with your fingers, and I thought, this is really no. Um, I think for not just for spiritual endeavors, but for your own, I'm going to say mental health, for your own mental
Yes.
health, for your own knowledge of you and of your soul, and actually just taking that time out from life.
Yes.
That is hugely important. And I think if everybody knew how important it was, and if everyone could experience that feeling of even just half an hour a day, not, I'm not saying to climb a mountain in the Himalayas
No.
and go for, but just have that time somewhere. And so many people, you'll be the same, so many people you speak to, I don't have the time, I've got work and I've got kids and I've got, no, there's always, if you don't make time for you, no one else will. And I think carving out that time for you on a daily basis, as I say, just 30 minutes, that meditation is going to do more for you, I would say, than anything else. Um, from a soul point of view, I know that when I do it, and if maybe I have an issue going on at the time, as we all do, of how's this going to work out? What should I do? Whatever it is, just
Yeah.
having that quiet time with just you, um, and the spirit world, if they choose to come on board, that is priceless. And the amount of times that I've came back out of the meditation and I've had, again, I spoke about clarity earlier, but having that clarity of, I know what to do. Was that my soul coming through? Was that my higher self? Was it just time to think about something? Um was it my angels, inspirers, loved ones? Every meditation is different. And I think so many people think, oh, but if I remember I started it many, many years ago and I went to a Buddhist monk, and um, that was my first time of, right, I'm going to meditate, teach me. And it was a class of about 20 of us, but it wasn't right for me. And it has to come when the time is right for you. But when you meditate and you quieten the mind and you have that time, there is nothing like it. Nothing like it. And I think if more people did it, I think the world would be a better, happier place. So that would be my 101%. That would be my recommendation for everyone, whether you're spiritual, whether you want to be spiritual, if you are a human being, meditate.
Meditating is good for children, good for adults. It calms our nervous system and it brings our anxiety down. So it's a good thing. And interesting enough, I actually studied with a Buddhist monk too.
Sure. Oh,
And it was Dickie Lee, and she ran a meditation circle. I don't know if it's a circle class every Thursday out in Burlington, and it was mindful meditation. So I would go. So after that, I'm just like a huge believer in mindfulness because it slows you down and it just, I don't know, it makes you so grateful for everything around you and so aware of everything you have within your life at this present moment. So I'm like, that's so interesting.
yeah,
You like
yeah.
meditate with the Buddhist monks. So did I. They're very cool. And I loved it. And then I would add, because I love that you say that. And I think go out and try different things, meet different people. And then also remember if there is fear in the teachings, wherever you go, run, don't walk, run away.
Yep.
Go somewhere where if it's a circle or if it's a workshop, because I remember I used to go on Meetup. I don't know if
Right.
they have them there, but they had them here. And yeah, I met a lot of not so good people, but I met some other cool people because I would just try to be like, okay, there's a lot of fear-based teaching here. So
Mm.
I'm no, I find to like joining a circle or like a psychic circle or a mediumship circle because you're finding your community. But then I
Mhm.
think it's that permission to, if it doesn't feel right, it's okay to leave.
Mm.
It's okay to quit and go, like you said, follow that intuition, follow where you're supposed to be. So if it doesn't feel right, because I don't know about you, but on my spiritual journey, I've run into a lot of walls where I'm like, yeah, I'm supposed to go here. And it's like, boom, that doesn't feel right. And then I do detours and I go somewhere else. Like, what was it like for the beginning of your spiritual um mediumship, like spiritual awakening? Like, did you just kind of like, because I hear stories, somebody finds a teacher and they're with them for 5 years and it's like life is
Mm.
perfect and there's flowers. And I didn't have that
Yeah.
experience. I was like, find a teacher. Oh my God, that's horrific. Go over here. Okay. Oh, this is a good teacher. And or good or bad experiences. So how was it for you?
Um, well, I'll keep this brief. Um, I had was having a really bad time. I was really struggling with my mental health. There was different aspects of my life that had been going beautifully that just all of a sudden fell apart. And so that was one of the reasons why because I had always kind of meditated on and off. But I always used to be drawn to it when I was having problems, when I was having worries, anxieties. That's when I would go back to my faith. That's when I would go back to meditation and, those kind of things. So when all these things happened, um, my way of coping with that was meditation. And I know I said earlier, if everyone meditates half an hour a day, that's perfect, beautiful. But I was going through such a difficult time. I was meditating hours per day, uh, just to get through the day, just to know, could I survive another day? Life was that bad. Um, so I was meditating. I was listening to things on YouTube. It was the only way I was able to shut my mind off. And so I would do meditation for an hour, and then I would have to come back into real life, and real life at that time was not good. And so I would then go for another. So as I say, I was probably meditating 3, 4 hours a day just to cope with life. And then because of that, that is when I was getting visitations all the time from departed people, and I actually thought I was going insane. And I thought I'm losing my mind. And I'm laughing now. It was not a laughing. Wasn't a laughing matter. It was really scary, and I was constantly. There was so much happening spiritually. There were so many people I was seeing that had passed many years ago, and all of a sudden I'm seeing them, I'm hearing them, they're all there, saying different things to me. And I remember telling my mum, but I only told her a little bit because I didn't want to really worry her. Um, and I thought I've got to find out what this is, because I genuinely thought I was losing my mind because everything was so clear. Um, and I remember I would say to my mum, "Do you know such and such?" Yeah, and I was given all this information and telling them what they looked like and the things they wore and the car they drove and all those kind of things. So I remember I went on social media because I didn't know, there was nowhere else I could go to, and I went on social media. How do you find somebody like that? And I found a lady in England, and she did online classes on Zoom, and I didn't even know what development was. I didn't know what development circle was. I remember the poor lady, her name was Donna, and the poor lady probably thought, who on earth is messaging me? Because I remember saying, this is happening, that's happening. I'm seeing lots of things. I don't know if I'm going insane. Can you help me? And I remember she was lovely. Well, I'm saying she still is lovely. I've not spoken to her for a number of years. And she said, just come. And I remember that it was like January the 18th. She goes, my class is at 7:30 in the evening. And I remember thinking that I'm absolutely, having a panic attack here of my life. And she's just, come, it's what. And I remember I didn't know what I was going into, but as I say, it was on Zoom, and there was maybe about 5 people other than her and myself. And everybody, it was almost, there was a little bit of, Donna talking, and then everybody did a contact basically, but I didn't know what any of this was. And I remember Donna said, Laura, do you want to have a try? I was left obviously to the last. Do you want to have a try? And I remember thinking in my head, what am I trying? What am I trying? What was she mean to? What am I trying? And I was like, yeah. And I just remember that this gentleman from Spirit came through, and I remember it to this day, what he looked like and what he said. And but it's almost as if it was an out of body experience. And I remember saying, I've got a man, and he was a salesman, and he drove a car with his work. And I remember he died in a car crash. And then when I was almost back in the room again, I remember, obviously somebody was like, yeah, that was my brother-in-law. And so, yeah, so it was a weird journey to get into, because I never in my wildest dreams thought I would do this. It was never something I wanted to do. Um, it found me rather than me finding it. That was a number of years ago now, and yeah, it was the best thing that ever happened. So yeah.
You know
Mhm.
what? I am so grateful because we're coming to the end of our time. And I just want to say thank you so much for opening up your heart and sharing your personal story with all of us. And
Thank you.
if you guys want to connect with Laura, I will have her website up and in the show notes and on the YouTube channel. So you can definitely find Laura. So thank you so much, Laura, for being with us.
Thank you, Maria. I'm so honoured to be with you on your podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're such a wonderful medium and such a beautiful soul. So when you invited me, I answered immediately. So it's an absolute pleasure to have spent some time with you. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. Goodbye, everybody.